Hello, guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of a Legendary Aspects. Today we're going to be going over another very interesting aspect, and this one is the aspect of might. The aspect of might is a pretty powerful one, and it's one that I like to utilize on my characters because it gets you a pretty nice amount of damage reduction. Not only that, but there's just a lot of ways that it works very effectively, and there are some ways that it is ineffective as well, and we can talk about those. Basically, the first one, let's go over the negative, is that when you talk about damage reduction, you have to understand that damage reduction doesn't stack additively. It actually stacks in a different way. So if you take a look at my damage reduction that I currently have, which is 18%, and I go ahead and I attack with the damage reduction ability, you'll notice that it goes to 44.2, 34.4, and then eventually falls back off at 18%. And the reason for this is there's multiple damage reductions going on, more than just simply the 20% that I'm applying. And if it were just simply 20% added onto 18, I would be looking at 38%. In fact, I have another percentage, which is coming from Storm Strike, and Storm Strike gives me an additional, I'm trying to remember here. I believe it's 10. I want to say it's 10. 15, right? So if we added that up additively, that would be 20 plus 15 is 35, and my base damage reduction is currently 18, so 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, right? So 51%. However, when I attack one time, it doesn't go to 51%. Instead, it goes to 44.2. And the reason for this is because each individual damage reduction stacks in a very different manner. So as you can see, my 18% plus my 20% equals 34.4, which shouldn't be 34.4. It should be 20 plus 18, which is 38%, right? So I'm not getting the full 20% because I already have damage reduction, and it doesn't stack that way. They do this specifically to prevent you from stacking to an infinite value, which would basically be, you know, like the moon, you know, so to speak. So if I had enough damage reduction, I could potentially make myself immune. But the way that this game works is it doesn't actually stack in that way. So let's see if we can run the calculation and actually figure it out together. So if I currently have 18%, right? 18%, then 18% is going to give me a damage reduction of 18%. Now, if I add 20% to that, that is not actually adding 20% to 18%. It's actually just reducing the damage that is taken by another 20%. So let me give you an example. So 100% or 1,000 minus 18% gives me a damage coming in of 820. If I subtract an additional 20% for the damage reduction from my armor, I will get an additional damage reduction of 164, which is going to bring that down to 656. However, 656 is the damage number that I'm actually getting. That's how much is actually coming in. However, if I were to take the numbers and add them together and say 1,000 minus 38%, which is the percentage that I would get total if I added together the 18% that I have and the 20% from the armor, then I end up with 620. You'll notice that the damage numbers are close, but not quite the same. So what I would expect from an additive is 620 damage coming in, and what I'm actually getting is 656. This is a small difference, but the problem is that when you stack more and more damage reductions on top of each other, the number starts to widen even more because it does less the more you have until eventually it's just basically doing nothing. And it's difficult to actually show this, but it's still really, really good, even despite this. Now, the aspect of might is really, really good because it basically just gives you a 6-second damage reduction for using a basic skill. You don't actually have to hit anything. This is really cool, is that you can just hold shift and swing your weapon, and it will immediately give you that 20% damage reduction. If you swing at any time during that 6 seconds, it will refresh the duration to another 6 seconds, meaning that you are always having the damage reduction as long as you swing your basic skill at least once every 6 seconds, which is freaking great. You don't even have to make contact with the target. So what does this mean? Well, this means that if you're running in through a dungeon and you get to a room like this, and inside the room you see a bunch of monsters, you don't have to engage the monsters to activate your damage reduction. You just simply tap the button and walk in. And then you can tap it again as you're walking to various places to make sure that it maintains itself, meaning that the aspect of might can potentially have a 100% uptime because it does give you the basic skills, grants 20% damage reduction for 6 seconds. This effect means that you're protecting yourself from all forms of damage, not just simply one. And as I talked about in the disobedience video, unlike bringing up your armor, which currently only protects you from physical damage, the aspect of might is going to give you a 20% damage reduction versus all forms of incoming damage. And as we found out, unfortunately, from some of the other damage reduction types, like, for instance, damage reduction while poisoned, damage reduction while monster is burning, damage from close, damage from distant. Conditionals can sometimes not apply at very awkward times, whereas a flat damage reduction, like this one, will apply to everything no matter what, and we won't have to worry about it not working at weird moments. There is a downside to this particular aspect, and it is important to talk about this, is that if you are crowd controlled for over 6 seconds, which is a little difficult, you will lose your damage reduction. So, if I'm fighting and I'm like, whoa, 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 yeah, 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 and then all of a sudden somebody stuns me. If they can stun me for 6 seconds, then I've lost my damage reduction. And there is a small chance that while your damage reduction goes down, you may become vulnerable to attack during that time period. So it is important to remember that you do have to swing your weapon at least once every 6 seconds to maintain that damage reduction on your person. Now, this is an item that you can obtain relatively easily by gambling, and this is the gambling here. You can get it from the Necromancer pants. That's the best place, but it's basically just pants in general. And this particular aspect does go on the helmet slot, the chest armor slot, the pants armor slot, the shield slot, and the amulet slot. Now, most people don't like to put this on the amulet slot because putting it on the amulet slot would be kind of a waste, especially considering the amulet is your best slot for offensive aspects. But if you did put this on your amulet slot, you would get, I think it's 30% damage reduction. I can't remember right off the top of my head if this one actually does increase, because some of these don't increase when it comes to specific slots. Now, if you're ever curious and you need to figure this out, one thing you can easily do is go over to the occultist, and you can just simply put it up there with the item that you want to check. You don't actually have to imbue it, but you do have to extract it, and this would give you an idea of whether or not the item can actually be increased by the amulet slot. Some items, believe it or not, or aspects rather, don't actually get any bonus from being put in the amulet or the two-handed slot, which makes it rather odd that they can even go in the amulet or two-handed slot at all, because in that case, you must be thinking, well, why would I want to put it in that slot if it's not going to do me any good? So you take your amulet and put it up here. You don't actually have to imbue it. You just take a look at the preview window. And so as we can see here, the basic skill percentage did not increase, but the seconds did. It went up from 6 seconds to 9 seconds. So that's definitely not going to be worth it putting it in your amulet slot, because getting an additional 3 seconds onto the 6 isn't really all that worth it, in my opinion. It's definitely something that would be better off in a helmet, chest, pants, or probably not shield slot, because the shield slot is, to be honest with you, too useful. So yeah, helm, chest, or pants, pretty much. Now, this aspect might not necessarily be the best aspect for your character, and you might be asking me, well, what's better than 20% damage reduction for 6 seconds? Well, some characters have more class-specific aspects, which can potentially be better than the aspect of might, so don't always jump Johnny on the spot to the aspect of might when, there could potentially be better options. For instance, on the Sorceress, there's at least one option that I can show you right now, which is the Snow Guards aspect, which gives you a 25% damage reduction as long as you are standing in or have recently stood in one of your blizzards. You get a 25% damage reduction for standing in the blizzard and 3 seconds after leaving the blizzard, which is very, very, very effective. There's also ways that you can have the blizzards literally just hit you all the time. So if you take the blizzard and you put it in your enchantment slot, you get a free blizzard that is on your location every 13 seconds, and it forms over you and follows you for 6 seconds. And since the damage reduction will literally stay on you for 3 seconds after leaving the blizzard. This means that for every 13 seconds, you will be 25% damage reduction for 9 of those 13 seconds. And then you will, of course, have another blizzard form over you 3 seconds later, or is it 4 seconds later? And then you get your damage reduction again. If you are a Blizzard Sorceress, this is an exceptionally good one because all you have to do is just touch one of your Blizzards at any point, and you gain the damage reduction for 3 seconds. And then you can, of course, touch another Blizzard as you're running around. I end up walking through my Blizzards on a regular basis with this character. In fact, I'll often will just simply cast one on myself, specifically for that reason. Not only does the Blizzard itself offer some very nice damage reduction, obviously, but also you get the chilling effects and the protection of the Blizzard itself because it can freeze targets during that time period. So don't always look at the aspect of might as the only choice, because there are other choices which could potentially be better than the aspect of might, depending on your specific character options. As always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos, even when we're just talking about something like the aspect of might. And as always, keep watching.